Jake was born May 11, 2000. He arrived on his own schedule about 2 weeks late, a little guy about 6 pounds, chock full of spirit.
From the very beginning, he was incredibly curious. He would look around, taking everything in. He was happy and playful, and from the moment he arrived, he stole our hearts.
Without a doubt, I would say Jake was a quick study.
I remember watching him learn to crawl. He would rock back and forth, giggling yet focused.
He truly lit up our lives. Brett and I had no idea we could love so deeply until we met Jake. I'll never forget that day. Our lives changed in a single moment when Brett decided to mow the lawn on Good Friday.
April 9th, 2004, and in the afternoon, I was mowing the lawn. And unbeknownst to me, Jake ran up behind the riding lawnmower, and I placed the mower in reverse. He was not supposed to be there.
So I was at the office that day when I got the phone call. Shortly after the accident, Brett borrowed a neighbor's phone and called me, and I could hear the sirens ringing in the background as he explained to me that Jake had been hit by the lawnmower. They were both taken by ambulance to the hospital, Brett for shock and Jake for the injuries that he had incurred. That day, the lawnmower instantly amputated 3 toes on his right foot and had sheared through his thigh, taking out bone and part of his knee joint and tissue and muscle.
After Jake was taken to the hospital, we spent the next 28 days at Arnold Palmer. The first 18 days, I believe we were in ICU. It was a gray part of my life at that point. He had numerous surgeries called debridement to clean the wound over and over every other day. And we didn't know the extent of the injuries until more time elapsed and the doctors could see exactly what happened.
At that point, they were just trying to stabilize him and get him healthy and avoid infection. Once we got through that stage, the doctors began to consult us more on the actual injuries Jake had incurred. And we made the decision to save his leg. And quickly we learned that there was a part of his femur that had been sheared off, and therefore his bone came down to a narrow point, and that affected his knee joint. So what the doctors decided to do is put a man-made substance, it was called bone cement, at the base of his femur, and that would allow his leg to heal and give it structure enough to be able to be weight-bearing with a brace once he got out of the hospital. We knew it was a temporary solution, but it was an appropriate solution at the moment to buy us some more time to figure out what we could do to help save Jake's leg.
After 12 months of trying to find a better solution from the bone cement, we traveled, or during the 12 months, we traveled the country, many different doctors, to just try to find a better solution. And ironically, here in Tampa, we were introduced to a doctor that actually talked to us about tissue donation.
We were tired and felt like we could not find a solution. And this particular doctor introduced an idea to us that had not been talked about previously, and it was this concept that they could remove the bone cement and replace it with an actual tissue donation through a donor. And Jake was so small and he really just needed a small piece of bone, and this doctor believed he could do this. And so we left there excited would not be a good description, because it was really an answered prayer for us. And so quickly we started this process where they were going to procure a bone for Jake to help rebuild his femur. So We went home and the doctor said, wait for a call, and within a couple weeks we were contacted by the Miami Tissue Bank, and they told us they had identified a donor.
Once the tissue was found, the doctor obtained the bone and took out the bone cement in Jake's leg and shaved down the portion of the injured femur and inserted the tissue. And it took about 3 months that Jake was in a cast for the bone to heal to his leg.
And the idea would be that this bone would heal to his femur and eventually become part of his body. And so we knew long term, if that could happen, Jake could have the stability of a knee joint just like you and I. And so we were incredibly hopeful. The tissue transplant was a great success. It accomplished everything we had hoped for. It gave Jake the stability that he needed at his knee joint, and it also adhered to his femur, just as the surgeon had predicted. Yet over time, over the next 3 years, Jake faced new complications because the damage from the accident was just too great. His one leg was growing at a slower pace, he was missing toes, and we ended up facing another difficult decision to make. And in 2007, Jake had an elective amputation.
If Jake did not have this tissue transplant, ultimately his amputation would have been higher up on his leg, and it would not allow him to be as high functioning of an amputee that he is today. So at the end of the day, we were truly blessed to have the tissue donation.
We were grateful because Jake rebounded fairly quickly after the amputation. This kid had been through so much, but the tissue donation allowed him a long lever on his leg, which gave his prosthesis a lot of stability, which would ultimately give him a lot of function. And so I would say within a couple months after Jake had his surgery, his amputation, he was fitted for his first prosthesis, and then he stood on his own 2 feet and he started to take a few steps, and from there he was off, right?
Not only was he walking, but he started to run and run and run, and he hasn't looked back since.
Jake makes us incredibly proud. After everything that he's been through, there's been no looking back for him, and there's not anything that he can't do. Every day he leaves us sort of speechless. Tissue donation really changed Jake's life. I think always our heart ached because we knew the sacrifice that somebody else made to give our son the quality of life that he's achieved. And I'm not sure there's ever words that you can express your gratitude for something like that. But I will tell you this, that the more I learn and the more I know, I understand that tissue donation saves lives, and it surely changed our son's life.